Here we are, my friend. Issue 17, operating concept for the love of the game. Welcome back, Kjael. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful Friday in New York. The temperature is about mid 70s, and I couldn't enjoy it any better.
Yes, no doubt. Fall in full effect. Peak foliage coming at you.
How are you, my man?
Excellent. I'm good. I'm good. I'm pooped. It's Friday. You can tell it's been a productive week, but a lot of stuff snapping together. I'm feeling good. Like we
Hmm.
got so much action on the SEO side, learning tons in that regard. Obviously, finding the cheat codes with generative AI, and we got webinars ripping and turning that stuff into useful content, capturing video content. I'm very jazzed that we're pivoting our podcast sessions to Riverside. I think this is going to be way better quality. Um, so yeah, I think we're leveling up. Period. Like it's like we've been
Yeah.
at it for a couple months in every regard, and now we're kind of stepping in and doing like a big kind of step function iteration. So I'm jazzed. The only thing that's a bummer is I was going to order some new microphone situations to really dial it in,
Yeah.
and it's been really pretty bad. I got like the super cheap kit that showed up, and it like almost broke when I was installing it. So I was like, all right, this is inevitably gonna just get broken. Like when my little Odie man comes in here, he's gonna just yank the top off that thing. So it's like, all right, I need to at least get to a certain level of quality. And then I ordered the wrong microphone because it only had like what is like a traditional kind of studio microphone input. So we're
Yep.
getting closer. We're getting closer.
Okay. Yeah.
By next week, we should have it really dialed in.
Incremental progress.
That's it. That's it. One iteration at a time. All right. So I'm going to pull up my screen here and let's do this one. All right. Can you see this okay?
No, I
It's,
can still see
it's,
you.
it's spinning up. It's thinking about it. I guess the
Oh,
topic du jour is the four. Oh, let me. There we go.
okay. Now
Boom.
I
We're,
can see it.
we're in business, right? Okay. Cool. So the topic du jour, and obviously issue 17, just to kind of come back, we're going to be looking at, we did the deal teardown, where we did a sneak peek at an interior design AI, which was a generative image AI, and they're pitching it as a SaaS. It's doing about 240K in ARR. Very interesting. Part two of issue 17 is where we're at right now. We're going to be digging into an operating concept, which this is like 20 operating concepts smushed into one. Like I was trying to figure out how to even write the lead in for this. I'm like, holy shit, it's like if you can master this substance here, holy moly, it's off to the races. And I'm obviously a huge this is Brian Balfour, and as we get in there, he's the founder of Reforge. I'm a member of Reforge. It's some of the best content around PLG growth and just kind of like the intersection that is I guess I think as we start to think about like growth generally, it's like, oh, you used to be a product manager, product marketer, you're a growth marketer, you're a salesperson, product-led growth. It's like at the end of the day, all these things really converge. And I think when we dig into the operating concept, which is these frameworks, you start to really understand how it all fits together. But
Yep.
anywho, we're going to obviously jump full feet into that. And then we've got the OKR teardown coming, which is going to be around user-generated content and how we're thinking about that. And then that should get us through most of September, and so we should be well positioned for a portfolio performance wrap, kind of the tail end of this 6-week sprint. Gucci gang, let's get into it.
Gucci gang. I was gonna say, for the audience, if this feels like a lot of information, we definitely recommend you dive into the article. But I can also see us doing some follow-up content with this, because this could be like a five-part video series.
Yeah, totally, and that's why I kind of and we're gonna kind of navigate this because usually the frameworks that we lean into are proprietary for the most part. Like, hey, this is our sauce for I guess the last one
Yep.
was buyer journey modeling, and using that kind of canvas, so to speak, to understand, okay, what kind of content gaps do we have, what type of prompts are we hitting users with, etc. So this is a little bit of a departure, but and a call or a friend from my network actually shared this with me last week, and this one slipped through the cracks. But obviously, I've kind of read the respective chapters. Um, but this is a beast, so I think we'll kind of navigate it and just see kind of organically what kind of dialogue comes up. At a very macro and as a point of departure, I wanted to just start here where the four components of the framework, right? To put it very simply, and the way that Brian Balfour, who again is the founder of Reforge, frames it is that you need these four pieces of the puzzle to snap together to have a shot at a 100 million revenue business. And also, think the other caveat is in a venture timeline. So call it 5 to 10 years tops, basically less than 10
Yeah.
years, right? You got to snap these things together to have a shot at hitting 100 million plus revenue. And it's pretty compelling. And I think right out of the gate, one of the first things that resonated with me, and we'll zip up here and you can kind of see how this whole piece fits together. But it's a 5 part. This is some pillar content on the topic
Yep.
of SEO, like, and then you
Yep.
just watch the kind of clustering that unfolds. But product market fit, I mean, PMF, we've spoken about it a lot. Like, I think one of our core assumptions is that when we're acquiring businesses, that there is product market fit. But obviously, there's about a million definitions of product market fit.
Yep.
I like his a lot, and maybe we'll touch on that a little bit as maybe kind of like a point of departure of what product market fit actually means. And then he goes into the other respective components. So you got
Yep.
product channel, channel model, and model market are the next ones. And I don't want to get lost in because it's confusing, right? It's like, oh my God, product channel, channel model, model market, like, oh,
Yep.
oh my God,
It's
like
like,
Jesus Christ,
where
like,
do you put the model and the market and the channel? And
yeah. And it's like, what are we talking about? How's this
it sounds
shit
like a
connected?
Jenga tower.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, dude, I forgot what we're talking about. So I think so. Let's start real quick with product market because I think that is the most conventional thing. And I thought this really stood out to me too, was, because it's so funny in our world and being like a CRO or a sales leader, it was like, man, if we had a new feature release, that was
Yep.
the greatest thing ever. It was like, holy shit, something new. This car goes
Hmm.
faster. We put a new stereo in it. The windshield wipers are lit. And so, like, I experienced this, but my context has never been PLG where it was like purely a function of like, hey, let's use releases or product internal kind of triggers, events,
Yep.
product releases, et cetera, et cetera. We won new clients, awards, et cetera, to use that as a prompt to get people's attention in the market, and then you'd see a little bit of growth. But this is totally like I was talking to again a kind of similar colleague in the network, and he's like, this is his reality, right? Where it's like we've launched the product, everybody's super jazzed, oh my God, and then you churn a bunch of folks, and then you release a feature and yada yada, and you keep
Yep.
going. Um,
So I can actually speak
yeah,
to that from a sales operations manager perspective because being on the operations side, you're looking to close the feedback loop between marketing, sales, success, and then product. Of course, finance is part of that conversation, but product at the end of it, they're always like, okay, what's the feedback loop? What are users saying? What are customers saying? So when there's nothing to really, let's say when the sales team doesn't have a campaign to go to market, we're going to beat product market fit as a terminology until that horse is dead, right?
yeah,
What's going
totally.
to happen is we'll go to product and say, okay, what's on the roadmap and what's coming soon? If there's nothing that's coming soon, then it's okay. What improvements have we made to certain bugs and issues users have been having? So we're going back to looking at all the tickets. Like, okay, how have we improved here? We're going to run with that and then set up a whole sales sequence against it. Now we have a dashboard. How are people converting and even engaging with this messaging? Is because when you don't actually understand how to, let's say, provide true value by speaking to the pain points of the customer, then you're just going to go talk with product and say, okay, what can we put in front of them that might be a quick cue for them to start clicking immediately? So that's where that part of the conversation comes in with product market fit as it relates to sales.
Yeah, totally, totally. And so I think what's interesting too, and I think the first insights from just as we kind of lean in, because I think most of my takeaways are around product channel fit. I
Mm,
like that because historically it's been like the channel is kick down doors with sales led growth.
right.
And like your channels are email, social, text, etc. But there was much less contemplation around like virality or user generated content. This is before kind of growth loops were even really a concept too. But I
Yeah.
like his orientation where it's like it should be market product fit, right? Like it's like you don't build products and then go find a market,
Right. And that
right?
threw me for a
You
loop. I thought he was like writing it in in the term of a typo because in some portions he used product market fit, but in other parts of the article, when he wanted to drive his point across, it was market product fit. You're like scratching your head, like, why is he saying it like this? And it makes sense. You start with the market first, not the product.
totally. Or it's like you just watch so many groups that have a product, build a product, then go in search of a market. It's it's just kind of back asswards.
Yeah, like the thought of you build it and they'll come, it's backwards.
Totally. So I think that's kind of an initial point of departure where I was like, okay, that's interesting. And he has some, and the link to this article will obviously be in the show notes and it'll be in the Substack. But I think there's, very simple kind of orientation around like, let's consider a market and then let's identify. And, they usually say the likelihood of wealth or success by any measure is directly correlated to how big the problem is that you're trying to solve. Right? Like ask Elon Musk, who's flying rockets to, he's going to make us an interplanetary species. He's
Essentially.
generated some wealth, right? He's like, it turns out that electrical power and rockets and constellation driven satellites for Wi-Fi connectivity, those are all things that are extraordinarily useful to humankind, right? So anywho, this kind of a general orientation, and I thought as like a simple thing when he jumps into market product fit. And actually, where is this? Yes, so there's obviously some different dimensions and ways to go through it. I
Hmm.
thought a few interesting things, and I don't mean to bounce around a lot, but I think market product fit, one of the first things is that it's not binary. It's not a yes or a no. It's usually
Right.
strength, right? Because we don't exist in a vacuum and time moves. Things evolve over time. So it's like, oh my God, we had really strong market product fit, and then the market changes or the product becomes antiquated, competitors catch
Hmm.
up, et cetera, et cetera. So I think first kind of core takeaway is that it's non-binary, that it's usually a function of strength, right? Weak or strong over time, and then you have markets
Yep.
that are expanding, you have markets that are contracting. But as a quick way to just kind of get us to a quantitative definition of market product fit, let's just stick with that. And
We
we've
look at
spoken about this
retention.
a lot, right? And for us, it's retention across cohorts. So it's
Yep.
like, you had 10 people sign up in January, you had 10 people sign up in February, March, et cetera, et cetera. We want to see those retention rates getting better over time or at least holding
Yep.
steady. And this doesn't necessarily contemplate cohorts, but it's the same thing. So it's like,
Yep.
right, it's like, and this it looks at more like usage, so percentage of active users, and this could be daily active, weekly active, monthly active, whatever. But there's a flat line here, a good flat line where it's like you start with 100% daily active users. As time goes by, you end up with about 50, and then that
And
stays
that
constant.
is pretty realistic.
Yeah, yeah, and for active users, yeah, totally. But you might even just think like subscription, like users that continue to pay a month over month subscription. Most conventional SaaS, especially in micro, is a monthly subscription, and then you've got, and then the other factor is direct traffic, which is interesting. And he's purely just positioning this as like if people love your shit, they spread word of mouth, and people are going to come to your website, and then you're like, how are these people finding us? Like they're coming directly to scalingventures.com. It's like, well, you probably have some evangelists out there that love you, right?
Right. However, while a lot of people look at direct traffic as word of mouth, I like to look at it in terms of SEO hacking. If your SEO hacking game is spot on, that direct traffic is literally going to be a game of what are people searching for your competitors and other people that are complementary or just say within the same niche of what you do, and how well are you ranking side by side with them. That's when I think about direct traffic, that's what I think about. I don't care about word of mouth. You can't measure that. Like there's just a lot of things about direct traffic that you cannot measure. But once you get into SEO
Yeah,
hacking,
totally.
it's like, okay, where was this person referred from? What did they search? And did we land side by side? Okay, cool. Now that is something I can lean into.
Sure. Or, because I always think about that more as like organic search. When you think about like direct traffic, and then there's referral based. There's some
True.
different ways to slice it, but
Yeah, but there's
to
some
your point, I'm
overlap.
yeah, and it's just like I think at the end of the day, people are coming to you and you don't really know why, because
Right,
they're
right.
not right. It's not ads. Like you're not paying for the ads. You're not creating this kind of conversion or like a relevantness in the market. And so it's usually a function of like people love your shit and word is getting out, and it's getting out in different ways. Again, the
Yeah,
irony or the part that's frustrating is that it's very direct traffic is direct traffic. So the attribution is very tricky unless you're able to plant a
yep.
cookie or a pixel somewhere and you can follow them around. Or like for me too, I was thinking about my buyer journey for a lot of stuff where I'll get hit with an ad in Instagram or whatever, and then they'll send me to a specific landing page with that ad messaging with maybe a nuanced offer. Maybe the offer is based on the data that they have on me or whatever. But every time I'm like, oh, like this is just weird. And then I open up Chrome browser and I go to their website.
Yep.
And so for those poor sons of guns, they're like, Jesus, more direct traffic. And it's like, nah, you guys, you got me with that ad. right? But they don't know unless, again, unless they're following me around. But anywho, so
Exactly.
product fit. We'll just stick. We'll follow Brian's, I guess, kind of orientation, his posture there. I think we're all on the same page there. I think so now, and this is like what most of the world has been built around, right?
Right.
Is like get to product market fit, and then and that's like milestone number one. And so the thing that I loved, or one of my big takeaways from this article, and I wonder if we can get here, is and he kind of pitches this. Yes, we are focused on so now we're going to change gears and talk about what is kind of like the next core component from Brian's perspective, and I would agree. But I think once you start to get into here and it's kind of like model channel, there's a lot of overlap. I appreciate how he's distinguished the two, but I think for the average SaaS operator that's kind of listening and following along with us, thinking about the same stuff, for me, one of the things that like I think product channel fit is so interesting. Um,
That's the standout of this entire article. That's the area that stands out the most.
totally, and I think this comment here it says it so well. We are focused on product market fit right now. Once we have that, we'll test a bunch of different channels.
And achieve nothing.
And it's like, oh, and it's like, but ideally the product is built to cater to the channel,
Yep.
right? And there are such good examples, but like, I mean, there's a lot of channels, but I think the bottom line is that the way that you can think about it, right, is that can you change the way a channel works?
No, you can't. You
No,
just can't. And the other
hell
thing
no.
is too, when we think about product market fit, we're thinking like, okay, who does this product provide value for, right? But we never ask, where is this person consuming their content? Where are they having conversations? Where are they even going to see this product? What's the channel? We always miss that part of it. And that's why I think this stands out because it's like, that two parts of your brain. On the left side, it's saying, oh, you need to do this. But when does it connect to the right side of your brain to say, hey, where do we go find these people? What's the channel we need to tap into?
Totally, and that's where I think it has to, and for in like a micro SaaS acquire and operate context, it's like you think it's kind of almost like you get back to the market, right? And it's like, all right, who the market that we're catering to your point, where are the channels that they're active? How are they
Yes.
consuming content? What is the other software that they've purchased? Like, what are their behaviors, their tendencies? And then you think about the channels that are available to you. And then still, though, in our scenario, because this is not the startup hustle, the product is the product and but we can get clever with the product,
Hmm.
but the channels are defined. So it's like, but I think in terms of order of operations, it's like, hey, and I came up this way where it's like we've got a product, let's test some channels, and then the way to kind of, and then I guess to kind of evolve past this, power law is so present in terms of channels as well, because I think a lot of times the convention is we're going to stack channels, and that's how
Hmm.
you get really exciting growth. And in reality, you just need to find the channel.
One
Like
really
just
good channel that you can light
one
up.
and that's the difference too. And Peter Thiel and a lot of folks have talked about this where it's like, you know, if you have a good product and you can light up one really solid channel, and then there's power law where it's like 80% of your distribution, 80% of your revenues, whatever, are going to come from that one channel. So again, fixate on finding that channel, achieving
Yeah.
product channel fit, and then, maybe in the future you layer on some other stuff. But it's like
Yeah.
it's diminishing returns, and that's just kind of icing on the cake. Um, so, anywho, I think kind
It,
of the core. Go ahead.
I was going to say it makes total sense because if you think about it, every channel has a different execution strategy to go viral or to be seen. You know what I mean? So, as you now begin to implement different strategies across different channels, one, you're already hitting a point of diminishing return because you're trying to accomplish so much all at once. The flip side is most companies they'll try a one size hat fits all. So they have one strategy and they'll try to apply it across different channels, and then they'll notice it'll still only work with one channel, but they're too distracted trying to make the other three channels work. And it's like, dude, you have some success here, some traction here. Focus on how you can revolutionize your strategy or optimize your strategy there. Don't even worry about the other ones right now that might be generating 3 to 5%. Anything that's sub 5% of the results, it's not even worth your time at that point.
Totally. And then it becomes a conversation around, as you just said, optimize the channel you got because those
Yes.
returns are going to be huge. Don't even worry about stacking shit up. Um,
Right.
and so I think this comes into like a context too, where it's like, and some of these were good examples, but like user generated content, like kind of SEO. like TripAdvisor, and what do those loops look like? Somebody goes to TripAdvisor, looks at reviews for a thing, they go on a vacation, then they leave a review
Yep.
on TripAdvisor, right? And it's just
Yep.
like this beautiful growth loop that goes and goes and goes. Virality, WhatsApp, hey, I'm going to text you. You should use WhatsApp. It's for whatever benefits there are, where there's kind of virality or kind of organic growth
Oh,
baked
I
into
mean,
the
I could tell
loops.
you the benefit. Hey, iPhones, they aren't used outside of the States like that. The world
Yeah,
uses
totally.
Android. Guess what? On Android, you can't FaceTime like you would on an iPhone. So guess what? As a guy from Guyana, from South America, if I want to talk to my family on video chat, you got to download WhatsApp. Now you're stuck.
Totally. And so that's just kind of a function of back like to the power law distribution, right? And most high growth
Yep.
companies get 70% or more of their acquisition from one channel during their early life. So I think in our context, it's probably less about thinking like, oh my goodness, I want to light up all these channels, and more
Hmm.
about testing channels and contemplating this is the market. These are the channels that that the market that our personas, our ideal customer profile, our ICP is active in. Cool. Now let's consider our product. Are there changes
Yep.
that we can make to the product such that it's better suited to the channels that we think are going to be the best likelihood of becoming that kind of power law distribution channel for us?
Hmm.
And then setting up experiments to kind of validate that assumption, and then away you go. And all the while, you're just looking for that one channel. And in
Yep.
micro SaaS, right? I mean, that you could 2, 3, 4x a firm just by finding that one good distribution channel. Um,
Amen.
so there you go. Um, and some other wisdom, like I think this is just said a different way, but is repeating some of the stuff that we've spoken about, is over time you shouldn't seek to diversify channels for the purpose of diversification. To your point, it's like make the Grand Slam channel 4 or 5% better is way more useful than lighting up a new channel that's going to give you, results that are an order of magnitude less impactful.
Right. And then you got to think about not only the lift that is involved with now learning how to be successful at this news channel, there's also the time that it takes. You're not going to see results in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. This might be hey, it might take you 3 months to light this channel up and then another 6 months to see results. All that time, now you have time decay with the channel that was working that you weren't paying attention to. You've now shot yourself in the foot.
Totally. Totally. And then I think that, the super trippy thing is new channels. I mean, for us, anybody in their 20s to 30s, like the channels are like we forget that like, oh yeah, mobile happened. That was
Mm-hmm.
super trippy. And I loved the conversation, and like it was like, Sheryl Sandberg, like, God, I wrote this down somewhere, but it was like they were like, holy shit, mobile's coming. Like and that
Mm-hmm.
is a channel change, right? Like we're going from desktop to mobile. And it was Facebook's first order of business was we are now a mobile first business. And Sheryl
Yep.
Sandberg, they weren't allowed to ship any features that year. So it was like we are pivoting from desktop to mobile, and we're completely changing the DNA of the business because this kind of channel shift is occurring underneath our feet. That just stood out to me. I was like, ooh, because for us, I mean, I think the really trippy one right now, like thinking about all the shit. Well, I guess SEO is always relevant because it's basically, how do you organize and index information such that you
Yep.
become more discoverable, and all of NLP, any search engine is based off of natural language processing, where they're consuming this shit and scraping it and structuring and organizing it and then indexing it such that you can query it with a search request, right? With a search prompt.
Yep.
But the big UI is probably gonna be a chatbot. Like, so the shift goes
The
away
next
from like
channel.
websites to like a
Yep.
chatbot, right? Like
Yep.
straight up, it's like, yo, I don't want to fucking go around TripAdvisor and look for shit. It's like, oh, spit this back out to me directly in
Yeah.
context. So anyway, so
It's
that's
happening. No, you're absolutely on the money there. The only reason why it hasn't taken a hold this year, it's because NLP still has some ways to grow. People are already using apps off the App Store to text their questions into a prompt and then the chat bot brings them an answer. When was the last time you tried Googling something? I tried yesterday. I couldn't find the fucking
yeah,
It
it's
gave me
brutal.
everything but the answer. And then there's these articles that are so old, but they rank highly because they just updated just maybe the title or some text, and you want to thumbs it down and report to Google like this is not the answer.
This is
Dude,
not useful.
chatbot is the
Totally.
next channel. The next channel.
Totally. Or I think just good, I guess, to be woke around like, hey, what are the macro kind of paradigm shifting things that are happening?
Hmm.
Um, and that opens opportunities because, and I think for us too, with our portfolio, I think it's like trying to think about short circuiting slash cheat coding. It's like, oh my
Hmm.
God, we could do all this kind of cool stuff with the product. Like, hey, should we change? And this is kind of a tangent, so bear with me here. We'll poke around it, but it's like,
Yep.
we let's refresh calendars and how calendars look in the application, or let's refresh the UI for dashboards. And it's
Right.
like, maybe you just slap a chat bot and think about what ChatGPT is doing with Code Interpreter, and it's like, what were my sales in December? Am I on track to do more revenue than I did last year? Right? So
Yeah.
once you start to get into like a natural language interface where the thing that you're interacting with just draws it, because it's like we want outcomes, we want answers. And the OG
Right.
thing was, dashboards sell SaaS because it's about, no data entry, workflow automation, that's all kind of OG. Then you get into data visualization which accelerates comprehension, right? And it's like, hey, all
Hmm.
this complex data, oh my God, I visualize it now. It's like, holy shit, boom, I know exactly what this is. I can find answers. We're trying to
Yep.
get to insights, right? And everybody pitches stuff as like the insights layer
Speed
now,
to
and that's
insights.
and that's a little beat up. But I guess it's just back to the thing where it's like, all right, we have these new channels that are available to us. How do we think about making our product a little more savvy? And the big takeaway, right, is molding the product to the channel, and the channel is usually a function of the market and where these people are active. So you start to see how
And
all this shit is connected, and it's like,
and this
how
is
much can you
why big
distinguish?
data has been a thing. The more data you have to get this insight, and then now you just feed it into an NLP model, dude.
It's on. It's on. So and then they go into, so now we're starting to talk about channel model. Um, And I think channel is kind of overgeneralized around like go to market motion too in this
Yeah.
context. I think the main thing is, and if we go down, or it's model market, but in channel model, it's like, hey, we basically, if your average revenue per user, simply put, is very low, you can't afford to buy a bunch of ads,
Right.
right?
And
Because it's
I
like, hey,
think this is a bit where the overlapping comes in, because when we talk about like product market fit, we talk a little bit about channel, we talk a little bit about, okay, with our model, how much are we charging, okay, where can we typically find these people. Where the standout was the product channel. That was where things kind of stood out to pull our brains into a different perspective. But once we get into like model market, model channels, like, yeah, we kind of understand this stuff. Obviously we can't run ads if your return on the ads, or if the amount you're spending for the ad is less than your return for what you're actually charging. Like, that makes sense.
yeah, and this is where it gets a little fuzzy for me because it's like, okay, channel model, it's like, all right, so let's say the channel is, paid ads. And it's like, all right,
Right.
our business model needs to be such where we have to charge more than we're paying for ads.
Yeah, you got to
Or we
increase
have,
your ARPU.
right, and this just is like kind of fundamentals around unit economics. I think it's
Yeah.
interesting because then and instead of channel model, and then it goes down and he kind of concludes with model market. And I think these
Hmm.
things are like almost too similar to differentiate,
They
because
they
this
are.
is
They're very
right,
similar.
and this is very OG, where it's like,
Yeah.
um, and then this was, I think, probably one of the most interesting things, where it's like, all right, what is the SaaS? What, and then you start to think about, okay, like in our days, it was enterprise SaaS, and it was like,
Hmm.
contract values of 20 to 50K because it's super complex, sophisticated products,
Yeah.
cross-functional
Deal cycles 3 to 6
implementations,
months.
all that. And then you start thinking, okay, like what, like it's less about channel, and it's like, what is like the driver of growth, which I guess you could say boils down to channel, but it's like, it's salespeople because they have to help buyers navigate complexity to solve issues in a business context. There's multiple options, depends on where they are on a tech adoption curve. But simply put, it's like, all right, we're selling 50K software. Cool. You want to grow. Then that's usually, if, or in this example, it's like you want to create something interesting. And in this context, it's $100 million business, right? He's like, cool. If it's a 100K contract value, you need 1,000 elephants. If it's a 10K contract value, aka a moose, a little smaller than an elephant, you need 10,000 customers. And so then you start to understand, okay, this is the real setup. Like how do you
Yeah.
sell a 100K thing? Are people going to buy a 100K thing by clicking on something a few times and onboarding themselves? Probably not. So
Mm-hmm.
you start to get into
Mm-hmm.
flies versus mice versus rabbits. And again, for those listening, these are all just kind of magnitudes in terms of like contract value. So using animals as a metaphor. So elephants are 100 grand, meese, whatever. Moose eye are 10K per, et cetera. And I think that's where you start to get into, okay, like, these are the contract values. This is probably what we need to do to navigate the purchasing decision. There's complexity around the decision making, committee, et cetera. And then you back into it. And then the channels is more so about how you get, and it's about account-based marketing, and it's about how do we get the attention of the personas, and you back into it, which obviously you have to consider. And I think what's been trippy for us too is like there's so much romanticism around product-led growth, and I think it's just I don't know how many products truly are product-led. Like I think they have
Yeah.
to achieve like the criteria, and actually we can kind of, and I know I think we only have a couple more minutes with you, Cab, but I thought something that was interesting, and maybe we can wrap on this. Um, was
Yeah. I have a few thoughts around the product-led growth side.
where is the channel stuff? Okay, so we'll get back to on the product hypothesis, but it's like core value prop hook, time to value, and stickiness. I thought that those
Mm-hmm.
two things are definitely the most I guess indicative of a product led growth motion. It's like if time to value is like pow, it's like boom, I click on this thing, I download the Chrome extension, boom, time, value, smell it, brand promise, aha. That sets up well for product led growth.
So that ties into the comment I was going to make. I was going to say when you find the perfect harmony in marketing and sales led growth and with product led growth, we see it as value led growth because you
Sure,
have
right.
to bring all into consideration. Marketing, they're going to demystify the complex sale with content. They're going to be the ones to
Hmm.
kind of pull you in. And then sales, they'll be the Sherpa. They'll hold your hand and kind of understand like, what's the barrier to entry? What are your pain points? What's keeping you up at night? Like they'll ask the right questions. Product, on the other hand, they're building the features that are supposed to drive value and impact. So as they're working with success, marketing and sales, it's like, okay, what are the first few things users are doing when they get in? What are the outcomes they're looking for? How do we get them? That's product's job. How do we get them to finding that value so we can retain them? Now, when you combine marketing,
Hmm.
sales, and product, they're all leading growth. That's a value-led growth strategy.
Totally. Yeah, 1,000%. Because I think that the bit too, in our context, it's, we don't have a lot of departments. We don't have a lot of department leads, and fewer headcounts, less cross-functional collaboration. But this becomes a disaster if it's like, well, we've got a product manager, we've got a product marketer, we've got a growth marketer,
And they're
we've
not
got,
talking.
and they have no idea, and then we have a sales team, and it's like, oh boy, and it's like, and then you think
Siloed
about
reports,
handoffs, and you think
siloed
about data
data.
silos, yeah, and it becomes increasingly, difficult. So,
Mm-hmm.
anywho, I think in closing, um, as we bounce back here, I think let's just kind of take it from the top. I think the assumption for us, and let's see if I can zoom in on this puppy, is whoa, that got very big. Here we go. Whoops, let me bounce up here. Is, like there's kind of four puzzle pieces, so to speak, from Brian Balfour's perspective. I think market product fit is something that none of us are. That's a game we're not trying to play. You can create a ton of value and a ton of wealth if you nail that. Um, But, I think for us, it's the assumption that that's generally buzzing. So our jobs as operator is, or our job as operators is to establish that channel, that product channel fit. So think about the channel in the context of the market that you're playing, and then think about how you can modify your product such that it fits the channel and is more suitable for growth that way, because channels for the most part are fixed and defined and outside of our control. And then
Mm-hmm.
think about lighting up one really solid channel, aka like one good distribution outlet, and then it's probably off into the sunset, and you can retire happy. Like the sunset's
Well, I
dropping, you
wouldn't
got a
say off
cocktail
into
in
the
your hand.
sunset. I would say the only time you ride off into the sunset is when you hire someone that can monitor and iterate as that channel
Yeah,
evolves. You got to
totally.
stick with the evolution.
Yeah, totally. And that's nothing is set it and forget it, unfortunately. But
Yeah,
uh,
even with tech
uh,
tools that say, hey, we just automate everything for you, that automation breaks at least once a week. Check on it.
check on it, peep it. So, anywho, hopefully this is useful for all the acquirers and operators out there. Stand up one channel, let her rip, test a few channels. This article is extraordinary, but just remember you can't change channels. So, be open-minded about how you can modify the product so that it fits to the channel, and then make sure your business model works. Like, make sure you're making more money from your customers than you're paying to acquire them,
Your
and
ARPU is higher than your CAC.
yeah, and then I think at the end of the day too, stay on your toes because something happens where, there are these paradigm kind of shifting moments. Like, and that's why I always like to say that, we practice business. Just like, doctors aren't like, I'm a doctor. It's like I practice medicine. But a lot of people are like, I'm a business person. It's like, nah, you should be
You're a
practicing
student
business.
to the game.
Yeah, because this stuff moves, and if you're not at the edge of it, you get eaten alive. And the cool part is when you are at the edge of
Absolutely.
it, you can eat other people alive, and then you start to feel like you're in a state of nature and you're in line with, everything that's ancient and awesome. So anyway, we'll leave it at that. K. Lou, always a pleasure, my G. Thank you for the time. Catch you
For the
later.
love of the game.
For the love of the game, giddy up. Yeehaw! All right, peace, bud.